I'm the kind of girl who laughs at a funeral. Can't understand what I mean? Well, you soon will. Merry meet my fellow bookish witches. Welcome to Witchy Reads, a place where we talk about books and other bookish things. What makes something a dark comedy? Is it the amount of laughs at the macabre, the perfect balance of quirky to deplorable ratio? Or is it the ability to take something dark and make us, the readers, forget that we should be appalled? I would say it's a concoction of all three, which is why a lot of dark comedies tend to miss the mark. To break it down, dark comedy strives to make light of subject matter ordinarily viewed as serious, too painful to discuss, or just straight taboo. It is most often used by writers as a way to explore issues most readers would consider vulgar, in the hopes of creating discomfort, serious thought, and amusement. As such, dark comedy tends to use dark humor as its core mechanism. So what is dark humor? This is a broad term under which a few types of humor fall. There is black humor that makes light of a more serious and cynical outlook to the bleakness of human life. Morbid humor, which is humor related to more dangerous situations, such as death. And then there is gallows humor, similar to morbid humor, but where the stakes are raised by having the dangerous situation be based in reality. All of these are tangentially related to the grotesque genre, which is just a generalized encapsulation for the strange, mysterious, magnificent, fantastic, hideous, ugly, unpleasant, or disgusting. He could strangle me. He could throw my weak female body into the water and watch on the news as I'm eventually dredged up. Another woman killed because she didn't do what a man wanted. How to Kill Men and Get Away with It by Katy Brent desperately tried to be a dark comedy. Specifically, it reached for that gallows humor, but boy did this book trip off a curb and slice its neck on a broken glass bottle. The story follows a woman, Kitty Collins, rich, pampered, privileged, spoiled, snobbish, pretty much every stereotypical adjective you can imagine when you hear the words Instagram influencer.
A white woman's Instagram.
Oh, and don't forget she's also vegan, because the author sure won't let you. Kitty spends her nights drinking and partying with her other influencer friends, never daring to stray too far from the safety of her gentrified neighborhood. Her days are used for recovering from hangovers and pushing products onto her followers that she herself wouldn't dare use. She also has a stalker, but this doesn't seem to really bother her too much. We are made to believe that her proverbial bubble bursts when a man who believes he is owed Kitty's time and body after buying her a drink at a bar decides to follow her home. He accidentally kills himself by tripping off a curb and falling onto a broken wine bottle, slashing his throat. This incident sends Kitty into an adrenaline-fueled tizzy, and now she has the unquenchable thirst for murder. There are definitely two kinds of people. Specifically, she wants to murder scumbags who try to force themselves on women, kind of like a feminist Dexter. All things considered with how the world is, this could be a worthwhile goal. So from this point on, she becomes somewhat of a vigilante, seeking out and killing men who she deems to be monsters that deserve to be removed from this mortal coil.
Buckle up, Scotty!
Despite its disturbing nature, dark comedy allows for some great human coping mechanisms, in that readers who are drawn to this kind of writing tend to be looking for something within themselves. This is particularly true if the reader is personally going through grief, stress, or some kind of trauma. These aren't requirements to enjoy dark comedy, but there is a bit of a correlation in people who feel that one or all of these feelings or needs are being compromised in some way. Dark comedy has the impressive ability to fill that gap. If a reader is experiencing the overwhelming and negative emotions associated with anxiety, grief, or forlornness, dark humor has the capability of allowing the reader to welcome in other emotions, like amusement, joy, or optimism. This presents readers with the opportunity to allow in emotions that don't challenge them. The outcome usually is a positive one. Readers may find that they are in a state of powerlessness, where they feel like they don't have any control over their life. Dark comedy gives readers the chance to respond to a disturbing situation on their own terms, giving a sense of empowerment and returning control of something to them. Using dark comedy to find human connection doesn't remove the darkness from the situation, but can, for a brief moment, keep us from feeling alone. This book literally could have given me any of those things and I would have been satisfied, but it didn't give me any of that. He doesn't look like a monster though, but they don't, do they? Otherwise, they'd never get the opportunity to be monsters. Kitty is exceptional at murder, to an annoying degree, mostly because all of the murders are played straight, without any consequences or serious ramifications for her actions. If this was truly a dark comedy, the only way this would work is if the murders were set up to give readers some kind of amusement, and if there were some ramifications that matched the severity of the murderous acts. The joke seems to be that Kitty is the heiress of one of the largest meatpacking companies in London, thereby allowing her to dispose of bodies fairly easily. Ha 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 ha! Do the non-vegan folks know what's in their processed meat? A Mrs. Lovett, Kitty is not. Mix this in with her blindingly white female influencer privilege, and you have a recipe for incompetent cops and miraculously zero physical evidence leading to her when there absolutely should be. Kitty gets to live in the comfort of her fame and wealth and knowledge that her murders are justified because these men are dangerous to society. And I'll give the character some benefit of the doubt in that most of the men she disposes of are in fact dangerous monsters. But the book does nothing with that. It just sits there in all its grim reality of what life is like for real-world women who can't fend off their attackers. Making this story a true dark comedy would have made this be fun wish fulfillment that I think Brent was actually going for, but failed to do. Here's the kicker. I did say that most of the men she disposes of are monsters, but not all. That's because things go sideways when she murders an 18-year-old kid who did nothing wrong. She had assumed he was an infamous footballer, soccer for my American viewers, with a reputation for SAing women. But whoops, no, this is actually that guy's younger brother who has zero experience with women and was using his brother's fame to get lucky. And boy did he. After being mostly semi-careful for the majority of the book, Kitty decides to play fast and loose with this particular murder. Why? There was no reason or indication that her methods should have changed. So as a reader, I can't tell if this is arrogance or idiocy on her part. Probably a mixture of both, though I tend to lean further towards arrogance. It's pretty obvious at this point in the book, her hunting methods are terrible and should be sharply questioned, because initially her parameters for committing murder are pretty simple. It's when she actively sees a man hurting a woman. So why is it that as the story progresses, she gets worse at pinpointing these men? Her methods literally start making no sense. And on top of that, she gets worse at killing these guys. Even when she justifiably murders an entire yacht of grapists, how are we supposed to believe that she managed to walk off that yacht and out of the marina covered in blood, without anyone seeing her. She apparently left no fingerprints, no DNA. This only works if the situation is set up to be humorous or cheesy or ridiculous, but it is played so serious. You can't do that and have your main character have zero consequences. If it's not a dark comedy, which this is not, there would be consequences for that character. As a true crime fan, to play this scene as serious makes it way more unbelievable and takes you out of the story. I've also spent time at a marina in real life where large yachts are docked. There are very strict rules for letting people near large rich people boats. Someone would have had to clock her coming and going. In a serious storyline, which this is, there is no way that Kitty is not a suspect here, but of course she's not. After the Greece yacht massacre, Kitty can't seem to hit pause for just a second on her rampaging before she goes out and murders that 18-year-old kid. Now, she is told about this kid's older footballer brother through an unreliable word-of-mouth situation. She doesn't confirm his actions or his location, takes home a visibly younger boy claiming to be the footballer, and then murders him without a second thought. It would have taken all of a few seconds to let her common sense take over, to stop, think, regroup, and confirm that she had the right guy before murdering him brutally. When she learns that she's made a mistake, she goes into denial and then panic mode. Then she receives a text from her stalker. You know, the one that didn't really serve any narrative purpose until this moment. They know what she did. They know that she murdered an 18-year-old kid who was innocent. And all of these things combined sends Kitty into her depression era, which is essentially drinking and popping pills to death.
And I'm never gonna lose you again.
This is an interesting representation of the character, considering up to this point, there has been no indication that she will face consequences, and the same is true about this murder, even though the guy was innocent. But it's even wilder in this situation, considering that there were many witnesses who saw her with the 18-year-old at the bar the night he died. She's not even a suspect. Since by this point, the book has clearly dropped the ball on being a dark comedy, the only other option is that Brent is trying to make commentary on society in some way, either on the ineffectiveness of police or the privilege of white females.
White woman.
But even if that's the case, the book still manages to fail even at that, because this is when we also learn that this bloodlust isn't a new thing for Kitty. She's been murdering since she was a kid, when she killed her father to protect her mother. Granted, I will give her, that murder was justified. And I know this is meant to spark some kind of sympathy in me for Kitty, but it just doesn't. It only served to have this book become a serious depiction of crazy white female. Are we laughing yet? Now, prior to all of this, Kitty had managed to meet and fall in love with a man. I guess he's one of the good ones. She must know this because he was able to do the impossible, make her weak in the knees by talking to her for 5 minutes without objectifying her. The bar for men is well and truly in hell. His name is Charlie, by the way, and he runs a charity whose biggest benefactor is the father of Kitty's friend Hin. After Kitty has murdered the 18-year-old and is feeling sorry for herself, Charlie returns to her apartment in the hopes of reconciling their relationship. He had justifiably broken up with her earlier in the book, but apparently he no longer cares about those reasons because he wants to get back together with her. It's here he finds Kitty in the middle of an unintentional overdose. He manages to save her by taking her to the hospital where no one believes that she didn't do this intentionally. Just another poor example on women's healthcare being ignored. But all is better now that she and Charlie are back together. The doctors release Kitty into Charlie's care, and for the time being, she has decided to hang up her bloody butcher's knife. Apparently, all she needed was a good man to help her see the error of her ways. Weak. But then, she is faced with the Harvey Weinstein of this universe. her friend Hen's father, the same man who is the benefactor for Charlie's charity. He tries to attack Kitty, but thankfully fails. Kitty also learns that he has a reputation in Charlie's charity, in that he has been SAing multiple women who work for the charity. In my estimation, this is when Charlie's true colors shine through. He knew what was happening under his watch at his charity and did nothing. And what was his excuse? There wasn't enough proof, because to him, the many women who came forward weren't enough to make him think that the Harvey Weinstein was sexually assaulting them. Charlie is not a good guy. Kitty decides to come out of murder retirement to take care of the Weinstein of it all. She corners Weinstein at his secret apartment, but before she can do anything, she is intercepted by Hen, Weinstein's daughter, Kitty's friend, and surprise, her stalker.
Surprise, motherfucker.
This reveal was such a massive disappointment for me. So many other better options existed in this book, but this is what we were given? Her friend is her stalker? I personally would have preferred Charlie to end up being the stalker. All the effort he went to be in the relationship with Kitty when he was justified in walking away, him wanting to be her caretaker after her overdose and inserting himself into her life further, come on. It just makes narrative sense. So Hen, as Kitty's stalker, knew about her little murdering hobby, but never turned her in for this specific reason. Hen wants Kitty to murder her father, partly to do with all he's done to other women, but mainly because she claims she is also one of his SA victims. Kitty performs the murder as easy as breathing, and then Hen reveals to her that she lied. She was never SA'd by her father, but she wanted to push Kitty over the edge in convincing her to do the deed. I found it weird that this plot point was even necessary. Kitty's murder code is not precise and is subject to change based on her mood. She has been shown to kill without real thought put into the why. So this just didn't have the impact on me that I think the author was going for. And once everything is all done, Kitty decides that two can keep a secret if one is dead. So she kills Hen, the only woman she kills in the book, her supposed best friend. And of course, she never faces consequences for either of these murders. The book essentially ends here. Kitty remains with Charlie, and it is implied that she hasn't fully quit her murdering hobby, so we learn nothing. This was a straight A, B, C storyline with minimal engaging plot or characters. Are we laughing yet? With how strong this book started, I am devastated by how it progresses and ultimately ends. This book had all the makings of an amazingly hilarious dark comedy, and yet, like a body found in the Thames, it became bloated by the murders and ignored what could have made it clever. I think what makes dark comedies appealing and fun is that they never take themselves seriously. That is the entire point, to take something serious and make it unserious. This book just couldn't manage to do that. What I look for in a dark comedy is the cheese factor. The more a story leans into the cheese, the funnier I tend to find it, and the easier I can digest it, regardless of the subject matter. This book is disturbing, and if that is what Brent was going for, that's fair, but everywhere I've looked, I've seen people labeling it as dark comedy, and it is marketed as such. If that is what Brent was going for, then she forgot to add the amusing to the disturbing. This also makes the message of the book harder to interpret and take in. Is it a commentary on violence against women? Is it a commentary on rich white women getting away with crime because privilege? Is it a commentary on the meat industry? The truth is, after finishing the book, I just don't know. Taking all these serious topics without a clear focus can ruin a reader's enjoyment of the book. I think had she actually tackled these topics with dark humor, it would have made it easier to express and have the readers take it all in. There is a particular way to set up the narrative of a dark comedy in order to weave that balance of dark subtext subject matter and amusement. I would have chosen to write the story in first-person omniscient narrator, but not have it be Kitty. No, it should have been the stalker. It is shown in the text that the stalker is privy to many, if not all, things that Kitty engages in. It is disappointingly underutilized. On top of that, because Kitty doesn't seem to care about the stalker until way later in the book, we as the reader don't care either. We should have followed Kitty's story through the eyes of the stalker, because then the author could have used their animosity as a comedy device, juxtaposed with all the murder. The stalker could have remained the character of Hen, but my preferred cast for the stalker would have been Charlie. Now, this choice can seem stereotypical, but I think it could have worked so well in this setting. It's weird that Charlie is the only man in this story who gets a pass just because the woman main character loves him. I would have also definitely leaned further into the outrageous, as there were plenty of opportunities to do so, and it was so disappointing when Brent didn't. Now, it is possible that Brent originally did want to make it more outrageous, but had to pull back. It happens. Another option could have been to American Psycho the story and have all the atrocious murder be in Kitty's head. I mean, yeah, it's cliche, but this would have at least accounted for her not being a primary suspect in every murder. And American Psycho at least had its funny moments. There is a way for humor and dark subject matter to mix, hence dark comedy. But if you decided that isn't where you want to take your story, I feel like it definitely shouldn't be marketed as if it is still dark comedy. And unfortunately, choosing to make this story serious just didn't work. Not with the established world or characters. The only way you were going to make a rich, white, privileged Instagram influencer relatable was to make this as camp as possible.
A white woman's Instagram.
This story presented the perfect opportunity to do just that. I feel like Brent chickened out and went way too far in the opposite direction. None of the actions made by Kitty make sense outside of a negative feminist stereotype of men equal bad, must kill man. I guess if you aren't confident in delving into dark comedy, then you probably shouldn't. I don't know if Brent could have managed to write the camp this story required, but I wish she had tried harder. I rated How to Kill a Man and Get Away with It by Katy Brent 2.5 stars. I know I've said it a lot already, but it bears repeating. This is not a dark comedy. I wish that it was. I wish I had laughed once while reading this book. Instead, I got to the point where the woman main character murders a child and I had to set the book down for at least an hour until I was ready to get back into it. There was a way to present this kind of story, and this just wasn't it. Speaking of the woman main character, I did not like her. I could not relate to Kitty in the slightest. And this is coming from someone who watched the entirety of the OG Gossip Girl and liked it. It is possible to relate to well-written, obnoxious, rich white people, especially if the story surrounding them keeps my interest. This was not one of those stories. Kitty managed to escape any kind of consequence to her actions and was allowed to give one man a pass. Charlie is the absolute worst because reasons. If you have read this book, I would love to know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Do you think this falls under dark comedy? If so, why? I am open to hearing different perspectives. If you've been enjoying my videos and would like to support my channel, the best way to do that right now is to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share any videos you particularly like. It really is a big help and I greatly appreciate it. Until our next chapter together, merry part and blessed be.